Well, to talk more about the COVID situation and the worries over the Omicron variant, we're now joined by Dr. Rahul Pandit, Member National Task Force, Dr. Rumel Tikku, Associate Director, Internal Medicine, Max Super Speciality Hospital, Delhi, and Dr. Vipin Vashish, Director and Consultant, Pediatrician, Mangla Hospital Research Center in Lucknow. Thank you, doctors, for joining us this morning. And Dr. Tikku, I'd like to start with you. It does seem that Delhi will come under the yellow alert. What has your experience been in the last couple of days?
Well, the numbers of Omicron cases are definitely going up. If we look at the COVID numbers, Delhi has had a huge spike. If you compare it to 1st of December, there's a tenfold increase from 0.7% to 0.07% to 0.7%. And yesterday we've had 63 odd Omicron cases. So definitely things are going to get worse before they get better, because that's how it's been. If you look at the entire COVID scene all over the world, in UK, Europe, US, things are going out of hand. US is having more than 2 lakh cases, UK is having around 1 lakh cases. Even in India, though the absolute numbers are much lesser, around 6,000 compared to what we saw 6 months back. But Maharashtra, Delhi, Gujarat, the numbers are going up, and probably because of the Omicron variant. It's increasingly transmissible and has the potential for immune evasion. So that we've seen, because in cases that we're seeing, they've already had the infection or they've been vaccinated. So definitely things are getting worse here, and we need to be vigilant. The government has started all the restrictions. They're ramping up the infrastructure. Everything is in place, but we also have to be responsible enough. If you go out, look at the markets, malls, there's so much of crowd, it's difficult to control them. So definitely people have to be responsible. They have to wear a mask, and please don't wear a cloth mask. And half of the people still don't know how to wear a mask properly. I mean, you have to follow the COVID norms. You have to be responsible enough. Otherwise, we are in for trouble. We saw what this COVID virus can do in the second wave. The positives still remain that the disease seems to be mild. You don't need probably that much of hospitalization. Severe disease might not be there, but all variants have the potential to cause severe disease. But we have to be concerned, but we don't have to panic. At the same time, the ones who have not been vaccinated with the second shot should go for it, because vaccination still remains our best bet against the disease. And we might have soon the vaccine coming in for the children, 15 to 18 age group, and then the boosters for the healthcare workers. So things are looking good. But overall, if you look at the figures, especially the Omicron, there's a potential that we might have a spike, and it might peak in mid-Jan, Feb, and we might be in trouble again. But we have to be vigilant.
Many doctors are saying that they're expecting the numbers, to go up from mid-Jan, that the huge surge will start. Dr. Rahul Pandit, it does seem inevitable in a sense if we take a look at what's happening in other countries and how their numbers surge suddenly. The US, in fact, reporting over 400,000 cases, though that includes some backlog of cases that have also been counted. But yes, so it does seem inevitable that we are going to see a big surge in mid-January, and we all just have to take care of ourselves, take care of the most vulnerable.
Good morning. I think what everybody is expressing is quite concerning, and it is right as well. What I would like to point out is that currently, as of today, we have the 2 variants which are probably predominant in the country. The Delta variant, which has been predominant for several months now, and the Omicron, which is emerging. We know that Omicron has eventually replaced Delta in most of the other countries, but currently we could say that we've got a Delmicron wave going on. So we have to be, as doctors, as clinicians, we have to be vigilant, because not all cases which are presenting may be actually Omicron cases, and they may have a Delta variant which have infected them, which could possibly increase the hospitalization or the risk of them getting hospitalized. So we need to keep our eyes on the ball very closely. The second thing which we all need to remember is that there has to be a lot of self-restraint. People at large need to understand that government is doing whatever government can do to the best of their ability, but they cannot be behind every citizen to behave appropriately in terms of COVID appropriate behavior. So I think a lot of self-restraint is warranted at this time. Night curfews and whatever restrictions have been put are actually meant to be taken in the right spirit and in the letter of it, and they need to understand that they are meant to protect the citizens and not seen as a deterrent in trying to actually break the law there and try to do things which might not be required right now. So I think self-restraint, double masking, you need to concentrate on your air ventilation strategies in closed spaces specifically. And of course, the vaccination drive needs to continue with all the important tick marks to be given to the vaccination in terms of 2 vaccine doses for all children to be vaccinated when it starts on January 3rd, and the additional dose for people who are vulnerable and the healthcare workers. I think all of these things together will make an impact. As far as cases are going, I would just take another 30 seconds. As far as the cases are going to go, I'm sure if it is Omicron, we will also see a significant surge in our cases as the weeks go by. And what is important to understand is that our population dynamics are completely different to the other European countries and the American continent. A large fraction of people, if they get infected, even a small fraction of that number would still mean that our hospitals may actually start filling up. So we need to be aware that our population dynamics are completely different to US and UK. If 10 lakh people get infected in India, and if we say that the test positivity rate the hospitalization rate, beg your pardon, is only 1%, we are still going to see around 10,000 people get admitted in the hospital. And if we say that the mortality is only 0.05%, we'll still see 500 deaths. So I think we need to be aware that even with mild infection, people are getting infected into the hospital and into the ICUs. Majority of them, 99% of them, can be managed at home isolation or COVID isolation centers.
All right, Dr. Vipin, Vashisht, what do we know about, Omicron and its impact on children? Because there are reports, anecdotal, that, in South Africa and in the US, in New York, they're seeing a lot of children also being hospitalized with the Omicron variant. Is this only because it's so infective and it spreads so vastly that obviously then, a few children and the percentage just becomes higher, which is what Dr. Rahul Pandit just explained?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I think it is quite an early days as far as Omicron infection is concerned, and it is difficult to say that pediatric populations are mostly affected. You see, in the US and the South Africa also, initially the younger population were affected, but later on, as the disease progresses, that even the older population, they were involved. And later on, even the higher section of the older and adult population, they were affected. So initially it felt like that pediatric population are getting burnt of the illness, but it is not like that. But as the disease progresses, the more of the adult populations and elderly, those who are more susceptible, they are involved. Another issue with the Omicron is its exponential rise and exponential decline as far as the speed is concerned. It is around 2.5 to 3 times more transmissible than Delta variant. And so within 2 or 3 weeks, suppose if you take the case of South Africa or UK or some other European countries, even within 2 to 3 weeks, it has displaced the Delta variant. And there's an interesting research came out day before yesterday, where they've shown that those who are infected with Omicron, they develop enhanced neutralizing antibodies against Delta variant. So it rapidly pushes the Delta out. It may be good news as far as the whole epidemiology and the whole disease scenario is concerned. But we have to be quite careful because of its increased transmissibility. You see, the virus, what does the virus need? It basically needs transmissibility. It does not bother about whether they are able to cause more severe disease and cause more hospitalization, but the speed and the transmissibility, ability to jump from one person to another. And this is what favors the virus evolution.
Right. Also, the fact that now vaccinations are going to be open for 15 to 18-year-olds. Some parents disappointed. They were hoping from at least 12-year-old that, the vaccinations would be there and we'd cover more of the population. Also, the children would be protected. What is your view on that? What would you say to these parents?
I think our first and foremost priority should be to cover the entire adult and more susceptible population. You see, currently around 41% of our adult of our entire populations are double vaxxed. So our first priority should be to cover these section of society, the adult and elderly. And if you see, the only one vaccine is allowed to be used in pediatric population, that is Covaxin. And if you see the entire scenario, the Covaxin is not available even for those adults and elderly populations. So our first priority should be the adult section of society and those who are more susceptible. Second, I think we should have followed a staggered approach. We should have first targeted only those children and adolescent age group with comorbidities like diabetes, hypertension, renal disease, and liver disease. These are which are who are immunocompromised. So our first priority should be these section of society rather than rolling out immediately. Because you see, the pediatric population, the chances of getting hospitalization are very, very less, say around 0.008%. And if you compare with an adult and elderly, they are 3,200 times less likely to get severe disease, hospitalized or died.
All right.
So,
well, different takes there. Thank you so much, doctors, for joining us. And here we are again at the end of this year, talking about the threat of a looming COVID wave.
I think it is 41% full vaccination is not going to help us, especially against Omicron.
All right. Well, thank you so much, doctors, for sparing your time and joining us this morning. And, I guess the message is that everybody has to take responsibility for themselves also and ensure that, they follow the COVID appropriate behavior. And yes, all doctors also talking about the correct masks that are to be worn, as that seems that is what can really protect you from this Omicron variant. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.